Hey, welcome to the Scuttlebutt podcast. I'm Rich Mellon.
And I'm Sandi. And welcome to the end of March in our basement.
Yeah, but I mean, it's typical March. March is like 91 days long around here, and you get everything from mud to snow to ice to rain to frost to frozen again to today's sunny.
Today is sunny.
I opened some windows down here so that because we had a lot of windows here in the basement.
Yeah.
And the sunshine is makes
Not
it warm.
quite so hot down here now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good.
We want to do this podcast for a couple reasons. One, it's kind of the end of the season review and all that, but what we've been putting up a couple other podcasts, and we've got comments that people would rather see a podcast you and I.
Yeah.
And
Well, really me.
Yeah. That's right. They want to see the princess talk to herself.
Oh, whatever.
And we understand that. And we, like people say, well, we'd like more of them from you out at the cabin. But you got to understand that when, lots of times those days at the cabin are minimum 12 hours long and sometimes longer. It's pretty hard to have much left in the tank.
We're not really very coherent.
No, at the end of the day, it's like, you're pretty exhausted. So I mean, it takes a certain energy level to do this, and to be able to even think and talk at the same time. And sometimes those two are not convergent thoughts that can happen.
Yeah, exactly.
You're so tired. So we had a bad year, a tough year.
Well, yeah, bad is relative,
Yeah.
right? I mean, November was a really warm month, and we were a couple weeks delayed getting any traps set out. And then it was our grandson, Nathaniel, was out with us towards the end of the month, so that was... Oh, it's always fun to have him out, but it's always a lot more work because it's...
Actually, this goes back a year and a half ago, and it would have been in... late November, early December of 21, when I first got back on the snowmobile.
Oh, yeah.
And I know, I thought that was so cute. You didn't think that my personal trials were anything that would cause a bad year. It was all the company we had.
Oh, well, you
had to cook meals.
Oh.
Ouch!
Oh!
Anyway, when I first got back on the snowmobile in late 21, end of the day, the very first day, I had pain in my hip. And it's like I thought I'd pulled a muscle. You know how it is. As you get older, and the older folks will recognize this, is that getting older ain't for the weak of heart. And you get aches and pains and groans and stuff that you never even dreamt of. You laughed at other people for when they had it when you were younger, right? But I had this, it was like a pulled muscle, is what it felt like. And so I took medicine for it, and it would come and go, so it was like, oh, I pulled it again and that kind of thing. But then, you get towards the end of the season, and I'm just about ready to be done on the snowmobile, and I think, okay, well, I'm good now. It'll go away. But it didn't. And
it just got worse, but in a different way, because it was back and knees and ankles and that kind of thing.
Everything. I didn't understand what was going on. And anybody that thinks that socialized healthcare is the bomb, I'm here to tell you, as a person caught in the middle of the nightmare, it's not the bomb. It's awful. Anyway, we haven't had a personal family doctor, you and I, for about 5 years.
At least 5 years.
Yeah. So a friend of ours who's an ophthalmologist and a laser eye surgeon, but he's also under Alberta healthcare rules, a doctor, he got us a referral to an orthopedic surgeon. And I go and see him, and I said, like my back, my hip, my knee, my ankle on the left side. I said, everything just sore, can't move, hurts like hell. And I'm not a wuss. I've never been a wuss.
No.
And he says, well, we'll have to start with some x-rays to see what's going on. And so they did x-rays, and he said, well, it looks like, he says, first, he says, you have arthritis in your back, in your hips, and your knees. None in your ankles. And well, that's a shiny spot in the day.
So, that's one bright spot.
But he says, we don't know what's causing the pain, because your sciatic nerve on each side goes through the back, the hip, the knee, and so a lot of it could be transference. And that's what it ended up being, was after the x-rays, they discovered that my left hip is done, wore out. It's done. Like ball in there is flat on the top, and it's got a flat spot on the side from bone on bone grinding. And as awful as that sounds, bone on bone has no pain in it. It's what comes off of that grinding, those little microscopic bits of
Muscle
dust or flesh or whatever it is,
Yeah.
that it becomes an irritant to the tissue that's in there, and that's where the pain comes from. But he said that you wore it flat on the top and the sides, and he said it's wore out. You need a new hip. And I was like, okay. He said, well, you took that quite well. I said, so let's schedule a hip then. And he says, well, it doesn't quite go like that. He says that, in Alberta Health, he says we want you to be 70 before we do this. So we got to stretch you out about 7 years here. He says, so first we'll inject cortisone, then we'll inject this other liquid or whatever, and then there's a couple other things to do, but get you out there so that we can replace the hip and that it should last you the rest of your life. I says, well, what's wrong with that if I have it done twice? And well, that wasn't their solution. And I says, well, that doesn't work for me. So we started going through, and this is where healthcare is so broken. In order for me to pay for a hip, I have to leave Alberta. Under Canadian healthcare, I have to leave Alberta in order to go pay for a hip, and I can do it. There's quite a bit of
medical tourism.
Medical tourism, they call it. They've got a term for it. So I could either, turned out, I worked through a surgery place in Calgary, and they referred me to, I could either go to Toronto or to Montreal.
Their clinic referred, but
Yeah.
there's other places, I guess, that you could possibly go. And we also know of friends and acquaintances who have gone to Mexico
Yeah.
for various procedures. They've gone to the U.S. for various procedures. They've gone to Germany for various procedures.
Yep.
So it's not new. It's not unusual, but anyone down in the U.S. that's holding Canada up as the shining star for public health care
It's so broken.
is,
So broken.
doesn't know the whole story.
No, and we're in the middle of it. So that was in August, and I got a hold of this other gateway surgery in Calgary, and we did some referral work, and they said, yeah, you're definitely a good candidate. But I said, look, this was late in October now at this point.
Yeah.
And I said, I can't do it now. I got to get through the winter. My year's worth of work is here in the winter, and my trap line and filming TV and everything else. And they said, okay. So they said, if you have any procedures done, you have to wait till 3 months after so we can assess again and for going ahead with surgery. So on November 22nd, I had the joint of my hip injected with cortisone. And it's actually kind of cool. You're laying there and rotated so that they can get at the front of your hip, and they go in with this fine, flexible needle is basically what it is. Look like a wire, but they go in and they go right into the joint of your hip, and they inject cortisone and a freezing right directly in. Burns for half a sec or so, and then you're good. You get up and you go to walk away, and you've got this dead spot in your gait. It's the funniest thing. I was kind of wobbly and stumbly to walking out of there, but for 2 days I was 45 again. I had not an ache or a pain, it was just awesome.
And we know other people who've had that procedure done, and they've gotten a lot more time
Months.
out of it.
Months, yeah.
So that's what we were hoping for,
Yeah.
but it didn't turn out that way. So then when we knew that didn't work very well, we weren't hopeful for the rest of it, but we had to wait then until the 90 days was up. So
Plus the winter and the trapping.
Plus the winter and the trapping, but then once you were past the 90 days, you could have the x-ray done.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
that was done, and then there was a consultation with the surgeon in Calgary, and then it kind of went from there. But we still had to wait. And we thought a lot of things were going to happen positively. We had a turkey hunt booked in Nebraska.
Yes.
So we had to cancel that, and then there was a lot of other things that kind of took our attention away this year.
At the end of February, I pulled everything we were going to be gone for a better part of 2 weeks, because we had the Bighorn banquet for wild sheep was going off, and so we weren't going to be at the trap line for 2 weeks. I can't leave traps out. Things, what I had out were otter traps, and a heck of a year for otter. Let me tell you, lots and lots of otter, and they're going for good money. Mm-hmm. We'll talk about that later. But so I pulled everything, and after we got done with the Bighorn banquet, like 2 weeks later, I got a hold of started the ball rolling again with on the surgery. And at that point, I was past the 90 days. I could be assessed, and I says, "Okay, I want a date." And they were like, "What?" I said, "I want a date. I want to get this over with." And so they looked around. They said, "Well, March 31st. Does that work?" And I think she kind of was joking when she said it to me, because that was only...
Oh, she was daring you. Is that what happened?
It was less than 3 weeks.
Not a good idea.
And I said, "Yep, it'll work." So we've accelerated everything, and next week at this time, I'll be walking around on a new hip.
And a walker.
Leave that one alone. Anyway, that's the long explanation why we've not been, or I've not been, super involved on locals, and I apologize. I usually get up a lot more videos during the wintertime, but it was a tough winter. We had a lot of people show up. We had, well, like our grandson, like you talked about, and then we donated a trip to Wild Sheep and to auction off, and they got all the money for it, but we took people for a trip, and you'll see them on the show this year. Yep. They were wonderful people.
That was just the weekend before Christmas, so that was a busy time for us. Christmas was really cold, but we did get out.
We had 2 big bouts of cold, and then cold snow. Yeah. And so we had, which really affected our lynx catch, but all the same. Then,
January.
We went to Reno.
Yeah, we went for Wild Sheep.
For Wild Sheep show there, and then when I come back, another fellow who had donated a trapline trip to Wild Sheep, but it was pre-COVID, and during COVID, then his trapline got logged, and so he had nothing, and he says, "Rich, can you help me out?" I said, "Yeah, okay, I can do that." So then we took those folks out. So it's really hard when you're used to. Her and I are a well-oiled team. Or, if it's just me out there, I know exactly what I'm doing all the time. Having other people along, as much as they want to help and they try to help, it just throws you off your game, or maybe it's just I'm too old a dog to learn new tricks. I'm not sure what it is, but it became a tough winter that way. There was a lot of things that were interrupting. If you have OCD and, look, a squirrel, I had a hard time getting on and staying on my game. We did a lot of trapping, but we had 2 really big cold spells and then 2 big snow spells. And one time, I think you might have seen. I think it's actually going to be one of the extras of one of the shows. But while we were there, the night I just finished up several days of resetting snare heights and everything, and overnight it snowed a foot, and we were leaving.
And there was no time to redo it.
There was nothing I could do about it. But I left knowing that the snow was probably at the bottom of all of my lynx snares and everything else. Right.
That's trapping, though, right? So, and then since March, so we had the Bighorn banquet the first weekend of March, and then there was the Sportsman show. And then there was, just this last week was the Alberta Conservation Association committee and board meetings, which we both sit on. And I had to edit the spring magazine for... Correct. Yeah. And in there also, he's edited at least 4 episodes. 4 shows edited. Yeah.
Our new season 9, starts on the 14th week of the year, which will be around the 1st of April. And that's here in Canada. And I don't know whether we're going to the U.S. this year or not. That season 9 may not be going to the U.S.
It may not. So for all of our American listeners and friends and
watching us on Pursuit Channel,
right now, the only way you may be able to see us is through the Locals channel. Yeah,
through our channels local. Anyway, that was why I have not been as involved. I haven't had the time. There has been, quite a bit of issue with getting around and getting stuff done, and I'm behind on putting out my fur and that kind of stuff, because you're dealing with a lot of pain and
standing on concrete to do the fur processing and stuff is difficult.
Well, you'd go out, and it was really weird. You'd go out and you put in 2-3 days out there, all those hundreds of kilometers on the snowmobile and that, and you'd come back, and I literally wouldn't sleep for days. Because I would have to go out to. I couldn't sleep I haven't slept in bed for months now. I sleep in a recliner or try to, but you're constantly trying to get comfortable to get this ache to go away and that. And so about the time where I was actually sleeping in the recliner again, then it's time to go do it again. So I'm not making excuses. I'm just explaining why I was not as present as I should have been. But that's all about to change.
Yep. Yep. So we'll keep everyone updated on all of that.
Bear with us, and probably about the middle of April, you're going to start seeing new episodes coming up on Locals.
Yeah, for season 9. And we should also explain that Trapping TV is, it's our second TV series, but we were involved with a hunting show for many years before that. And so it's been ongoing for probably 25 years, what we're doing. So none of this is new, apart from some of the changes that have happened this year, and that's just, I guess, life.
Yeah. We what was it? End of October, just before trapping season started, we got home, and our oldest dog Eli had to be put down. He had a systemic cancer, which meant he was born with it, and he'd lived with it his whole life. It was in his lower leg, hind leg, and eventually the tumor ate its way through the bone, and his leg broke.
And it metastasized.
Yeah, and
as well. He had a large mass in and around his lungs.
Yeah. So we had to put him down, and I don't know. Gunner was pretty happy for a while because we both petted the fur off of him. Gunner was never not or wasn't at that point wasn't a really super outgoing dog. He left that up to Eli, and Eli, wherever you were or whatever you're doing, Eli was glued to you, right? And Gunner just was back a bit from that, and then Gunner took up that chore.
Yeah.
Of being always in your face looking for attention, and then we found another pup. We brought Winston into the family.
Yeah, so Winston, when we got him in the beginning of December, he was about 1.5 years old. Came from a good family situation. They just had some tragedy happen in their family, and so a widower and 3 teenage daughters, and a change in job, a change in location, and it just wasn't going to work. So rather than try to manage that, meaning that Winston would be in a kennel for many, many hours in a day, they reached out to someone that we know who put us together, and that's how Winston came to live on the ranch. And he's taken to it like a champ. He really loves the great outdoors. He's taken up squirrel hunting just like Eli was.
Yeah.
He loves the whole shebang. So we felt really fortunate to have him join our pack.
Yeah, he's young. You're about 1.5 years old.
Yeah.
We actually got some weight put on him now. When we got him, he'd been on a raw food diet, which can be good, but if it's not balanced enough, a young dog needs a lot of fat in their life, and he wasn't getting it. He looked more like a Great Dane. You could count his ribs and all that. And so we got him on a high performance food. Our friend Josh Robinson from On Point Adventures, and they have GSPs, and he says, put him on this, and it's a high performance food. And we got some weight on him. He looks awesome now.
He does.
And he's
and
very
he's a happy dude.
Yeah. He's learning the lesson of the collar.
Yep, you will have seen him starring in a commercial that we just did, and that you'll see on season 9. We did post that up on Locals.
He's
and
a
I think
dashing-looking boy, wasn't he?
He is quite dashing.
Yeah.
Richard put a GoPro camera on his back with a harness and everything, and it's hilarious. But
he took to it like a champ, very chill dog. Usually a dog that age, they'd be rolling around, biting at whatever's on him. He's just like, only thing
I'm a star now.
I have a remote that actually it's an app through my phone, and I can turn it on and off through my phone. And of course it beeps when it the tally light comes on and off. And he'd look back at that point, but Alan Natty really didn't care. It was pretty chill. It was an awesome experience.
Exactly.
We did have an issue though. I mean, because he is a hunting dog, so his prey drive is very, very high. It's so funny because our youngest boy has a German Shepherd, and it walks in amongst the chickens and ducks, and they sit on it and everything else and it pays no attention to them. And of course, when you have bird dogs, well, their prey drive is very high. And we were out there. I was cleaning the chicken coop, and he shouldered his way past you, and he grabbed one of our chickens, a very pretty chicken. That the breed was cream leg bar, and that is because it had leg bar in its name. Made me think of MMA, made me think of Joe Rogan, so we called it Joe Rogan.
So the chicken's name was Joe Rogan. Anyway, Winston kind of got a hold of her, plucked some feathers out of her.
Was running away with her, and you were after him, shrieking like a banshee. And
throwing snowballs at him.
And finally he dropped her, and you went after him because you wanted to kick his butt. Like, I was not prepared for you to be defending a dinosaur.
I know, it was all new to me as well. But then, because of that, then Gunnar thought this looked like just an awesome game to be playing, chase the chicken. So he took up where Winston left off, and I don't think Joe Rogan really recovered after that. About 3 weeks later, she had a bum wing and a bum leg. Yeah. And so we moved her in with the ducks. Yeah. Not in with the ducks, but into the garage in her own little kennel, and we thought she was making a comeback, yeah. and then she didn't. On Thursday, she just was.
We're down to 9 laying chickens.
9 laying chickens.
We have more on the way though.
We do. So our daughter-in-law has been very keen to try to incubate eggs. So she's got 24 eggs from Josh and Charlene.
Yep.
From On Point Adventures, and they've been doing some really interesting stuff out there with their chickens, and they've got
pigeons, and they got quail, and
they've got chuckers, I think.
Chuckers,
too.
Yes, yeah, well, quail, yeah,
and
Hungarian partridge.
And Hungarian partridge, yeah. So anyway, we got some just
Plymouth barred rocks. We got a dozen Plymouth barred rock fertilized eggs. We have there's 4 black copper morans. There's 3 or 5 yellow flavolels, and then there's some other one.
There is a lavender Orpington.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So we'll have a very colorful selection of eggs.
Yeah, well,
and there's quite a market for farm-raised eggs, and anyone who's been to the grocery store knows what they cost.
Those eggs alone, I mean, the bards are a brown, lay a brown egg. The copper morans lay a dark chocolate egg. The Flavels lay a yellow egg. The Buffs lay a pinkish brown egg. Like it's going to look like the UN nation inside that.
Yeah. Oh, and then we've got some Americanas that lay blue eggs. So
yeah, we got those. And
so
what is that one?
Quite an Easter egg.
We've got another one out there. Lays very olive eggs. That's Barnvelder.
Okay.
The Barnvelder lays very, very.
So anyway, we have an eclectic group of chickens. And then we've got the ducks. So the ducks were an impromptu kind of a acquisition last spring because...
I'm going to talk about this.
Yes.
And when you hear ducks, you think of this.
Yeah. and it works. Anyway, we this winter, everybody says that ducks are hardier than chickens. And that might be, but where we are and it gets really cold, ducks have water flying in every direction all the time, usually on themselves. And when it's cold, the 6 or 7, I think we had 7 at that time,
yep,
didn't have enough body heat to keep their enclosure warm enough for them. So on the first real cold spell that we had, Richard had to throw together a bit of a pen in the garage.
At the TV set. So when this year you're going to hear ducks in the background when I'm out at the set where I do my skinning and all that, and it's because it's my roomies.
Yeah. Anyways, they made out pretty well, but he threw that enclosure together, and then he went out with a Rubbermaid tote and stuck them all in a tote and slammed the lid on, and they still have trust issues over that, if you can imagine. But, you know, even in that, what is it, about 6 feet?
6 foot diameter, yeah.
Yeah, and we clean it. We have to clean it every week because everything's wet. They poop a lot. They bathe, they have to have water with every mouthful of food that they have, and it's just a real mess out there. Well, so a new sponsor this year is Easy
Clean. And it is a bioenzyme. And I got it just out of trying to do something because ducks not only poop a lot, they smell a lot.
Yeah.
And because everything is wet, you know, you throw down, they're on concrete, so I throw down hay for them to
straw.
Or straw, pardon me, and just so that they're not on the concrete. Well, then, of course, the underside of that straw, it gets wet, and so there's poop and pee, and ducks are like the biggest pigs ever. They go and they get a beak full of food, and they go and in the water, and so you have this slurry between the food and the water of duck drool or whatever it is.
But they also have to have dry straw in order to have a nest that they'll lay an egg in too. So it's a big deal to keep the smell down, keep everything dry enough.
We couldn't keep the smell down until we started using this.
Exactly.
And it's a bioenzyme, which means it's got a bacteria in it that eats the feces and everything, as long as it's wet. So you go out there and you scrape everything up, you give it a splash of water, you spray it down, and like we keep the smell down really good. Like I'm amazed at how well it works because it eats it all up, which is awesome.
Yeah. So you'll see more of that on the show this year in terms of the commercial and whatnot.
I gotta tell you guys, here's one of the secrets. A duck, if it's going, it's a female.
The males, if you can imagine, just kind of murmur.
It's kind of like a buzzing, bee almost, like nothing at all, quiet as can be. So obviously they're used to the women being.
And here we go. Anyhow, this ended up being a very impromptu solution for the ducks this past winter, but we have another solution for this summer and on into next winter. So you'll see a little bit of that coming up in future shows in season 9.
I got to actually build an elevated duck house that I can put a 4-inch drain in the bottom of, and so it can drain out and you know, because the problem we have is everything's going to freeze, and so I'll have heat in there to you know, you got to elevate the temperature a little bit. They're okay with, you know, 10 degrees below zero, that kind of stuff, but beyond that they're not. And as long as they got water, they not only eat with it and drink with it, they bathe.
Yeah.
They take and splash themselves, beaks full of water all over themselves, and you know, they get glazed in no time flat. But you need to be able, so everything in there gets wet, you need to have an ability for that to drain out. And that's where the biggest issue has come in with ducks, is that you've always got this constant mucky mess going on. So I've got a system now that I've spent some time thinking about, and it's going to be an elevated duck house where the water can go out underneath and get away. And I won't need to worry about a heat tape or anything else. It won't be a long enough run to be able to freeze up.
Yeah.
But you'll see us do that this year.
And we're making the duck or the chicken and duck yard bigger this year.
Yeah.
And because presumably we're going to have more than a couple dozen layers, although they won't actually start laying until they're at least 6 months old. And then we'll have meat chickens again this year. I think everybody and their neighbor wants meat chickens this year. So we'll do a couple rounds of those, and we are going to butcher those ourselves. Last year we took them to the Hutterite colony, about an hour's drive away from us.
We just didn't have time, and we didn't have access to a plucker.
We didn't have access to a lot of things, but mostly it was time.
Yeah.
And so now this year we'll be a little bit more prepared. And then, then pigs.
We're getting some bacon seeds.
We're going to get some bacon seeds. So Nathaniel, who a lot of people have met on the show, he's our Grand son from Grand Prairie. He's in 4-H. He's a Cloverbud, but he's 7. So when he turns 8, he can have a project at 4-H. So we're, you know, his mom and dad and us are just sort of setting the stage for him to have various different projects, and I hope he doesn't want something else like sheep or something. Emus. His mother's big on emus. She's going to find herself cut out of the will if she keeps it up. Anyway.
Hey, she's brought you a long ways. You know, we got the chickens, got the ducks, got turkeys now.
Yeah, we have so that's the other thing. She's incubating these 24 chicken eggs from Josh and Charlene, and then she got a couple of wild turkey eggs as well, so she's got those in her incubator. But we've got plans then to build a bit of a pig enclosure, and then also we want to do pheasants. So I don't know how all this is going to go, but anyway.
Well, the thing about pheasants is, I mean, they need to have a flight pen. So we will have, I will build a pen out, and then I'll cover it in mesh so that they can actually fly. They have to, you know, exercise those wings and that, so that when they get out, they know how to fly. So that it's called a flight pen. We do the same thing for our chickens and ducks, but it's to stop the other ones that can fly, not them.
Yeah, well, all the predator birds that we have in this area, we have a lot of hawks
and owls and
eagles.
eagles and that kind of stuff. And they're just doing what nature intended for them. So, I mean, I have to be smarter than the bird. I cover it in. And the funny part is that I have to import the mesh, the netting, all the way from the United Kingdom, from Great Britain, and that's I could buy it in the States, but they won't ship it here.
Well, we just have to find someone that we can ship it to, and I think we do have that solution because.
Well, it's easy to. I mean, I just phone them up in Great Britain
and weeks later,
it gets here.
Yeah. Anyway, we'll figure all that out as we go. But those are a few of the projects, and then of course we'll have the big garden like we did last year, and the greenhouse. And then we've got, because of the pigs, I think we're going to do more.
I'm going to do kind of rough gardens that are going to have like we're going to grow squash and zucchini and pumpkin and that in to feed to the pigs.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it's like where you folks live, but around here, a tribe couldn't keep up to a single spaghetti squash plant. Like, I mean, it is nothing.
They are quite prolific, and I think, was it last year we only had 3 of the zucchini seeds actually germinate, and we had zucchini wildfire. It was crazy. Anyway, the ducks and. Well, the ducks not so much, but the chickens really like it, don't they?
Yeah, they do. Well, I cubed up a bunch of that zucchini and we froze it, and I've been feeding it to the ducks. They like that.
Yeah.
It's very wet, so I mean.
That's a
good deal that way. But I'll be happy when we can get them out of my garage and the noise and everything just. It's an irritant.
Yeah, well, and it takes up a lot of space in there too, so it'll be nice to have all of that back.
We've got quite a tree planting program on the way, and a lot of like blueberries and raspberries and cherries again, and as well as a lot of hedgerows, lilacs and carragambas.
A lot of flowering trees and whatnot. We already have some choke cherries that go off real well, but all of that is to support our bees.
Yeah.
So that's the next thing, is that you put 4 hives to bed this fall.
And we had 2 really terrible shots of way below 40. I guess at one point would have been 50 below Fahrenheit when you converted it. It was like 46 or 47 Celsius, so it was like 50 below Fahrenheit.
Yeah.
And I insulated them all. Like, I put two inches of insulation and everything around them.
Rigid.
What happens is those bees get down in the middle and they cluster. They call it a cluster. And that cluster, they keep the temperature in there at 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's to keep the hive, the bees, and the queen alive. And they need all these resources in order to make that. But we got our original 2 starter hives last year very late. I think like the 12th of July. And then all of a sudden, by the middle of first week or so of August, it was like they were going to swarm on me, which is unusual. But we hit a really big alfalfa and wildflower bloom. That's what our bees here get, is alfalfa and wildflower. Lots and lots of wildflower. So normally you take and support your bees, and you get them out there and get them supporting end of April or so, and by the long weekend in May, third week of May, then you'll split, because you'll split your hive because they're ready to swarm at that point. What that means is there's anywhere from 70 to 100,000 bees in there, and that's in a two hive box, two brood boxes. So then you split it, and whatever you split off, then you put another queen in there. Well, because we had such an awkward time last year, it was hard to get bees, COVID, everything else. It was hard to get bees, and we got them so late. And then when it came time to split, it was the wrong time of the year to be splitting. And then I couldn't get queens for quite a while. I split early in August, and I got queens
3 weeks later.
3 weeks later, like the 21st of August, which is terrible, because on their own, they would produce a queen in 6 weeks, but then I'm way, way behind at that point. So I got the queens in there, and of course, my two original hives, very, very strong. Very strong. And the one other hive was doing really, really well as well. The one, there just wasn't enough bees in it. It was vigorous and everything, but there wasn't enough bees there. You need to have that 50, 60, 70,000 bees, it goes down to like about 50,000, I guess, to make it through the winter. And I was worried about that. So I was out there a couple weeks ago, and I was checking them. We're just about to the point where we can start putting out pollen patties and that to support them until the aspen and willow pollen starts. And one of them didn't make it. 3 out of 4 made it, and I was talking with a fellow who specializes in this bees in this country, in this kind of cold. And he says a lot of people have no understanding of how it is to winter bees here, and he says for you to get 3 out of 4 or 75% through, that was quite an accomplishment. So I felt pretty good about that. And
you'll see more of that on season 9 shows as we kind of go through things too.
Yeah.
So lots of things, homesteading wise, that we're going to be showing you again this year. And we're by no means the experts in any of this, but it just really kind of shows you that you don't have to be an expert in order to generate and grow your own food. So,
not at all.
And our honey that we produced, we gave it as gifts this year, because we got about 90 pounds of honey, and we gave gifts, and I'm getting back my cute little jars that Richard bought me that look like a little
glass beehive.
Glass beehive they're about 12-ounce jars, and I've had them returned. It was like, maybe you'll fill it for us next year, and of course we will. But so many people said, they scraped it out with a spatula so that they could get every last drop, and that's because we didn't cut it with any pure raw. Yeah.
And people said it was like they'd never tasted honey before. Well, 2 things there. One, it was all alfalfa and wildflower, so very clear, just about water clear.
Yeah.
And the second thing is that what constitutes pure honey can be 23% corn syrup.
Yeah.
And that still classifies to be pure honey. So this is a big difference.
Yeah, and so we didn't do any of that, and it really showed, and we're just about out of honey because we really enjoyed it, and so has everybody else. So
yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Yeah. Well, and the thing is, I didn't know. I was so proud of my 90 pounds of honey, until this one guy looks at me, he says, well, that's all? And I said, what? And he says, well, if you start, he says, I realize you started late. And he said, but if you start end of April, he said, each one of those 2 brood box hives, he says, you're going to put 4 honey supers on top. He says, you should get 200 pounds of honey off of each one of those hives. And I'm like,
so yay! I think we're going to have to go into the glass jar business, because we'll have a lot to share with everybody.
Maybe just tell everybody to send us a case of glass jars, and we'll fill them and send them back.
No, I don't think we should do that.
We'll go
I think what's interesting is that a lot of people have asked if we're selling it. So, when you, especially locally, made or whatever honey is so good for you. It's one of those really good things for your gut.
Yes.
And anyway, it's a superfood. So then the last thing we have to talk about is the auction that just went off. Fur Harvesters auction just happened this week. And
this right here was a big hit.
Yeah.
Bear.
Yeah, but all the prices were, with the exception of coyote, I guess, because you always hear everybody's yakking about how the coyote prices were down from where they have been.
Good coyotes still brought a not bad dollar. Like mine are all Western coyotes, right? Yeah. And they're all heavies. And I think I averaged about $60. I think I averaged $45 US, which would be what, $60 Canadian, something like that.
Roughly.
Which, back in the day, whenever you got that was awesome. If I had, like, my colors were mostly two to three, yeah. And but if I had 1 and 2, those were averaging like $75 US, and so I mean, once again, high quality, high quality, and when the craziness was going on with coyotes, then the eastern coyote and the far southern coyotes, which were lighter and poorer colors, and that we're bringing dollars. They were getting $70 each. Yeah. But that was not sustainable because it wasn't really high quality. Yeah. And it's the same here. When we started the season this year, we started late, for a good week or more late on our setting up for our marten and fisher, and it was strictly because it was warm. They're always prime on the same day every year. That leather is thick on the same day every year. That's controlled by daylight. But the thick isn't there. What they call a heavy coat, right? So you get a semi, which is a fall coat, and then you get a heavy, which now we're in full winter. So the difference between that is, you double your value of your marten or your fisher. And marten, we're hitting $50-$60 for the good northern stuff like what we've got. Well, I would have been half of that if I had went, started on the 1st of November. We just waited for it. So, I mean, once again, quality meant something. And it's the same thing with beaver. Yeah. Beaver is all being driven by the felting industry, okay? So that's for making hats. And, I mean, you can make felt out of just about any fur out there. Rabbit and sheep wool both make felt. They don't make beaver quality felt. Right. And it's funny that once we went through this COVID and all that, it was that luxury items did not drop in value. High-end snowmobiles, quads, and fur coats.
Side-by-sides. I saw side-by-sides at the Edmonton Boat and Sportsman Show a couple weekends ago, and they were like $65,000. Yeah. That's the same as what I paid for my luxury vehicle.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, okay.
And you drive a Lincoln.
Yeah.
So anyway, it was one of those things. So when people are buying hats, they're buying quality, and that quality hat is made with beaver. But once again, the beaver that makes for the best felting is in the winter, the peak winter beaver. So the heavy winter beavers are going for good money. Some of them are hitting $60 or more US a hide. Very important that you took them when they were peak, when they're quality. Yeah. Weasels went up to $10. The one thing that did not move was muskrat. Muskrat did not move.
Mink did well though, didn't they?
No.
I thought
$10. Not super good, but lynx are back strong. Otter are back strong. Like bears were huge. Yeah. And wolves, like I said, Western coyotes.
Yeah, and there's always lots of people out there that are complaining about prices, and it's not worth doing, and it's this and it's that and it's the next thing. And first of all, I don't know what it's like where you live, but in Alberta you don't have to sell your fur on the year that you trap it. You can hold it. So that's something that we've done previously. Yep. We did have quite a bit in the sale. Yep. So that part's good. But then the other part is working with that fur. So, in northern Canada, we have some of the best wild fur anywhere. Oh, we probably have a visitor out there.
We probably have a deer in the backyard.
Yeah, that's all right. Gunner, go lay down.
Gunner, bed.
And so anyway, it's about then utilizing your fur for your own or having it made into something that you can sell from that. So we had showcased, and I think it's it's kind of taken off. Just some of the shows that we've done and podcasts and stuff that we've done around the beaver blanket that we had made.
Yep.
So the small fur shops are really starting to take off because they're starting in the domestic market, because people are like, I never thought of doing that. I never thought of making a blanket maybe with coyote or wolf or lynx, let alone beaver. So it's been just about 4 years ago that we had that beaver blanket made from Sisson's Furs. Lyle and Carrie Lou Scoble in Red Deer, Alberta, did that for us, and that's got a lot of play. That blanket all by itself, now it was made for a king-size bed. It has 20 beavers in it.
Yep.
That we've had tanned, plucked, and sheared. So it's a beautiful blanket, and they did a tremendous job putting it together. But they took it out to a couple of shows then in 2019 before the COVID mess hit, and they were offered a lot of money for that blanket. But they had it so that they could showcase what could be done with fur. So that's just something for people to consider. There is a cost and investment to do it, but it can reap some really solid rewards for you.
That's the one thing that back in 13, everybody talks about, when prices were so high in 2013, we were getting up to $200 for a marten. It was crazy. I mean, it wasn't sustainable, and we knew it wasn't sustainable. But what it created was a problem where NAFA, North American Fur Harvesters, started to market just strictly to the Asian markets, China and Asia. And I kept saying, you guys are abandoning our domestic market here. I mean, the U.S. economy is the largest one in the world, and we should not be abandoning it. But no, this is where the easy money was. And we know where that went. NAFA's out of business now, and the people that were doing all the buying in China were actually smuggling and into China, and they'll never.
They all went to jail.
Yeah, they'll never see the light of day again. But all on its own, the North American market has started to come back, like the domestic market, and it's mostly small furriers that are doing it. And here's one thing that if you want fur prices to come back, I want you to invest in your local furrier. I want you to go there, and yes, his stuff is going to cost more than buying something from China, but just as you expect to get the top dollar for what you do, he deserves it as well.
He and she. But
yes.
But also then I wanted to show you something else that we did this year. So again, Lyle and Carrie Lou, we've had such a great relationship with them. But a number of years ago, I bought at the Fur Institute of Canada convention was held in Yellowknife, Northwest Territories in Canada. And I bought a ring seal pelt. So it had been tanned and whatnot. I just thought it was a beautiful piece of fur. I had no idea what I wanted to do with it. We kind of kicked it around, what we were going to do, how we were going to display it. And then Richard had a beaver hat that he wore all the time out trapping because it was so warm and it cut the wind and everything else. And it
destroyed it last season.
And it fell apart after the last time it was cleaned. So was well loved, well used, a very valuable tool for him to use out on the trap line. So then we decided that we would use that seal skin, and do that in conjunction with a tanned otter hide that we had. So we had a bunch of otters tanned, and they're just beautiful, silky, and they're warm. Couldn't be a whole lot better than that. And so then we gave all of that to Lyle, who is really the craftsman in all of this. And
not going to stay on very long because it's hot.
Yeah, it is a very warm garment, and that's what it was made for. But you just show everybody. So, like the seal is the skin itself is very durable, but then the otter there's a layer in here, and then there's a double layer of otter here, plus the seal skin underneath. So when you're running a snowmobile or a quad or whatever in the cold days up here in the north, that really protects your forehead and a lot of your face.
I guess, I mean, you could use a helmet, but I sweat so much I could never use a helmet. It constantly fogged up, and so it's not a solution. Plus, you're prying on and off your ears all the time. That leather, man, is just unbelievable how much that protects you and cuts the wind. I'm a huge believer in it. Nothing is as good as fur for doing the job. This is very warm. I had it made big enough so that I could wear a toque inside of it, and then I wouldn't sweat this up. But it is not a fashion statement. It's not meant to be folded up or anything else. It is just it is meant to be, you know, overlapped and protect my throat. And it is a awesome piece of equipment. It is equipment. It's a tool.
Yep, and we're seeing so many people, local artisans, that are getting into this. We've got a few friends. One of them is a lady from the Lac-La-Biche area of Alberta, and she's got just beautiful items. Stacy Skirpin.
Skirpin, and it's Fox.
Wolf and Fox.
Wolf and Fox Designs is her company.
Yeah. Anyway, she does tremendous work. In fact, she had a display at the Wild Sheep Foundation banquet just a few weeks ago.
Mike Matney, a friend of ours from Wrangell, Alaska, he has a fur shop.
Yeah.
And he does an immense amount of work with
lynx.
Yeah, he does with lynx. He does with beavers and otter. Up there, of course, they have the sea otter. He can't do anything other than resell it, but the natives can go out and hunt them, and there's nothing endangered about sea otter. They when they first protected sea otter, they said if we ever get back to 20,000, we will consider them recovered. They're over 50,000 now. They're endangering the sea urchin population, and they don't know what to do with it. But now it's the willpower to change their status. But anyway,
and with the Europeans and the Americans, actually.
He's another fellow who's very involved in fur.
Yeah.
These are all local people. These are all your neighborhood. And when people talk about that, there's no money in fur. Well, I have spent several king's ransoms going fishing around the world with you, and we've done the same thing hunting, and neither one of those have ever paid us a penny. It's a life, right? And so that's the thing about trapping around here. Our winters are unforgivably long. You know, you start, snow might come 1st of October and stay till middle of May. If you're not trapping, doing something like that, you go insane. So,
and a lot of people do.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's the life there. That's a big deal right there. But plus, when, you know, coyote especially was high, we were all, you know, said that our reason for trapping coyote wasn't the money. Had nothing to do with the money. It was a conservation thing, that these animals had to be controlled. Now that, you know, that they're not worth as much, or maybe the southern or eastern coyotes are worth little or nothing, they still have to be controlled.
Yeah.
So I mean that excuse was great when we were getting paid good, but it's still firm today.
Well, in Saskatchewan, raccoon and what else is it?
Raccoon and fox both carry
fox.
Rabies and distemper. Raccoon is the #1 vector for distemper, and that can go to your pets, your domestic animals, your horses, everything, humans.
Yeah.
You know, I mean,
so they have to be controlled, and
yeah.
there's just so much more to trapping than what you get for it at the fur market. So, you know, it's a topic of conversation. It's kind of like everybody talks about the prices of fur, like they talk about the weather.
Yeah.
Generally not in a good way. But, you know, have a look at what kind of opportunities and options there are for the fur that you catch, because I'll bet you that even with dollars invested in tanning or what have you, that you'll find that your product is worth more money.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. I guess we'll call that a day. We'll say that, you know, we're just a week or so away from the new season.
Yeah.
We're about 3 weeks away. I got to get back and get a little bit healthy before I can get the stuff up on locals. But season 9 will be up on locals, and we'll be eager to be reconnected with you folks. I'll get this up right away and to explain. Once again, my apologies for not being super engaged, but it's been a little bit of a tough row.
Yeah, it has, but lots of stuff coming your way this year. You know, 23 is going to be a good year.
And I'll tell you right now that under protest, you'll probably see a lot of videos and pictures of me with a walker. Between my darling wife and my rat-fink children, they're all excited to see me with a walker. So.
I don't think that that's going to last very long, but
No.
anyway.
No, we're
we're going to have to be fast about it.
Yeah.
We'll have to be fast.
We've already made it over the hump, and we're on the backside.
Yeah.
Get the surgery out of the way, and away we go. But
Yeah.
I hope you had fun with us today. We had a lot of fun talking to you. It brought back a bunch of memories. It was a busy year, even though we thought it was kind of screwed up.
Every year is busy, but we just have to sit down and think about it a little bit.
Anyway, maybe we'll see you down the line.